In a quiet suburban neighborhood, Megan, a teenager known for her sweet and caring nature, was hired by the Johnson family to babysit their young son Ethan while the parents attended a nearby event. The Johnsons were a kind and affluent couple, and Megan had babysat for them on numerous occasions. This night, however, would be like no other. The evening started like any other. Megan arrived at the Johnsons' spacious, well-appointed home, greeted by Ethan's infectious smile. She had always enjoyed babysitting him, and they quickly settled into their routine, playing games, reading stories, and enjoying snacks. As the night wore on, Megan learned more about the Johnsons' home. She discovered that the house had been in their family for generations and was filled with antique furniture and family heirlooms. The Johnsons had always been tight-lipped about the history of the house, except for occasional mentions of a distant relative who had once lived there. While watching a documentary about the history of the neighborhood on the Johnsons' TV, Megan was shocked to learn that a gruesome murder had occurred in their home years ago. The documentary spoke of a mysterious killer who had been active in the area and the subsequent investigations that had failed to solve the case. The murderer's identity remained unknown to this day. The revelation sent a chill down Megan's spine, but she tried to maintain her composure for Ethan's sake. However, as the night progressed, strange occurrences began to unfold. She began hearing odd noises, whispers, and footsteps echoing through the spacious halls. Objects seemed to move on their own, and shadows danced in the corners of the room. Megan tried to reassure herself that these unsettling events were merely the result of an overactive imagination, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in the Johnsons' house. The situation escalated when Megan tucked Ethan into bed for the night. As she turned to leave his room, she was startled by a ghostly apparition that stood at the foot of the bed. The figure was a shadowy, indistinct silhouette that sent terror coursing through her veins. With trembling hands, Megan rushed from the room and into the hallway, only to find that the house had transformed. The once elegant home was now a decaying, dilapidated mansion shrouded in darkness. The walls were lined with eerie old family portraits, and ghostly voices whispered from every corner. In a twist that sent her heart pounding, Megan discovered that she had been transported to the past. The room she had just left now bore a number, 606. As she explored the house, she realized that she was dressed in early 20th century clothing, the same era from the documentary she had watched. The twist was both horrifying and tragic. She had been transported to the night of the gruesome murder that had taken place in the Johnsons' home. She witnessed the horrifying events of that night, trapped in a horrifying time loop, unable to change the past or escape from the nightmarish scene. The ghostly apparition she had seen in Ethan's room was a manifestation of the past. She was condemned to relive the events that had unfolded in room 606, the epicenter of the house's horrors. As she tried to alter the events of that fateful night, Megan discovered that the house was a malevolent entity, drawing in unsuspecting victims to replay its dark history. In a small, quiet town nestled deep within the woods, Emily, a young woman with a penchant for old, decrepit houses, set her sights on a long-abandoned Victorian mansion. The house had a sinister history, but Emily was undeterred. She had always been fascinated by the macabre and sought to make this house her own. As Emily delved into the task of renovating her new home, strange occurrences began to plague her every day. At night, the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and faint whispers echoed through the darkened halls. Although these unsettling events sent shivers down her spine, Emily dismissed them as the products of an overactive imagination, a way for her new surroundings to play tricks on her. One fateful evening, while she was home alone, the disturbances escalated. As she sat in the dimly lit living room, an eerie voice called her name from the depths of the basement. It was a faint, distant whisper, as though beckoning her to come closer. Fearful but filled with a morbid curiosity, Emily decided to venture down the creaky wooden stairs. To her surprise, she found herself in a room she hadn't seen before, its door adorned with a tarnished brass plaque that read, "Room 104." The air was heavy with a strange energy, and the dim, flickering candlelight revealed a group of people dressed in early 20th century clothing, seemingly trapped in a never-ending party. The revelers danced, laughed, and sipped cocktails, yet their laughter was hollow, and their eyes held an air of desolation. It was as though they were caught in a perpetual cycle of pleasure and torment, unable to escape the room's dark confines. Emily watched in horror as they continued their ghastly festivities, oblivious to her presence. As Emily attempted to leave the room, she noticed that something had changed. The basement stairwell had vanished, and she was no longer in the Victorian-era attire she had entered with. The room itself had transformed into a dimly lit, modern bedroom, complete with the number 104 inches etched into the door. Emily had become one of the haunted partygoers, locked in a nightmarish time loop, eternally reliving the night of her home's darkest secrets. Desperation consumed her as she tried to interact with the trapped souls, but they remained oblivious to her presence, locked in their own individual hells. In a chilling twist, Emily's existence had become intertwined with that of the mansion's tortured past. She was now another lost soul, repeating the same evening over and over, unable to break free from the never-ending cycle of pleasure and despair. The room itself was a malevolent entity, feeding off the souls trapped within, each newcomer becoming another victim of its sinister curse. Jack, a man known for his obsession with mirrors, inherited an old, ornate mirror from his late grandmother. The mirror was an exquisite piece of craftsmanship, adorned with intricate carvings and beveled edges. It had been in his family for generations, and Jack felt a profound connection to it. He placed the mirror in his bedroom, where it dominated one wall, and he spent hours each day gazing at his own reflection. To Jack, the mirror was more than just a reflective surface. It was a gateway to self-discovery and self-admiration. He often joked that he couldn't go a day without looking at himself in it. One night, when he was alone in his home, Jack noticed something unusual. As he stood before the mirror, he realized that his reflection wasn't quite mirroring his movements accurately. It started with subtle discrepancies, like a slight delay in his reflection's movements, but it soon became evident that his reflection was acting independently. Panic and confusion consumed Jack as he watched his reflection perform actions he hadn't initiated. The reflection seemed to possess a malevolent mind of its own. The mirror's surface began to ripple like water, distorting Jack's image and revealing a sinister grin that he couldn't replicate on his own face. In a desperate attempt to understand what was happening, Jack reached out to touch the mirror. His hand passed through the surface as if it were made of mist, and he was instantly pulled inside. The sensation was disorienting, as he found himself falling into a seemingly endless abyss. When Jack regained his bearings, he was in a distorted, nightmarish version of his own home. The environment within the mirror was an eerie, distorted reflection of reality. Shadowy, malevolent entities roamed the nightmarish landscape, and whispers filled the air. The once familiar rooms of his house were now twisted and macabre. Desperate to escape this grotesque realm, Jack embarked on a terrifying journey through the mirror, encountering grotesque creatures and disturbing scenes at every turn. As he navigated this chilling world, he realized that he had been drawn into a parallel dimension, where his doppelganger lived a life of darkness and torment. His dark reflection reveled in the suffering he caused in this twisted mirror world. Jack was forced to confront the darkest aspects of his own psyche, coming face to face with the malevolent intentions that lurked deep within him. It was as if the mirror had exposed his inner demons for all to see. As he delved deeper into this nightmare, Jack uncovered a shocking truth. The dark reflection was a manifestation of his own subconscious desires, and it reveled in the pain and suffering it could inflict on others. The mirror had become a malevolent gateway to a nightmarish realm created from his own twisted psyche.